One of the things that's been in the news lately is the idea that this federal funding freeze that was illegally instituted by the Trump administration and has been put on hold by the court system. The news has been not that he tried to do something illegal, does that all the time, not that the courts stopped him. They've been stopping a number of illegal actions, but the fact that it seemed like some organizations were finding that even though the courts had ordered the freeze lifted, it hadn't been lifted. There are reports of Head Start programs across the country sending letters to the families saying that they can't keep going, that they don't have access to the portal that provides their federal funds. The National Institutes of Health had frozen all grant funding. Remember that report about, hey, it isn't just pediatric cancer they don't want to fund? It's all cancer. As a matter of fact, anything that the National Institutes of Health is funding has been frozen. Well, this morning there was a memo distributed at the NIH that acknowledges that that funding freeze was illegal and directing staff to resume issuing grants. Let's hope that something similar will happen at USAID. This is from a ProPublica article published end of January, not that many weeks ago, like a week and a half ago, something like that, written by Brett Murphy and Anna Maria Berry-Juster. Here's how it starts. This was published January 31st. On Friday morning, the staffers at a half-dozen U.S.-funded medical facilities in Sudan who care for severely malnourished children had a choice to make: defy President Donald Trump's order to immediately stop their operations, or let up to 100 babies and toddlers die. They chose the children. In spite of the order, they will keep their facilities open for as long as they can, according to 3 people with direct knowledge of the situation. The people requested anonymity for fear that the administration might target their group for reprisals. Trump's order also meant that they would stop receiving new, previously approved funds to cover salaries, IV bags, and other supplies. They said it is a matter of days, not weeks, before they run out. Brett Murphy, who was a co-author of that ProPublica article, joins us now. Brett, first of all, incredible reporting. ProPublica is one of the sources of information that we have been touting on this show as people start to lose faith with cable news or lose faith in the impartiality of places like the Washington Post or the New York Times. We have been saying, there are other places where the information is still good, and ProPublica is one of them, and it is reporting like yours, Brett, that makes us feel comfortable publicizing your particular institution. Great job on this reporting. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Thanks, Joan, for having me. Thanks for saying all that. I'm well. How are you?
I'm Wednesday. I'm Wednesday. It's a little bit better than Tuesday. Won't be quite as good as Thursday, but, that's just how kind of life is for a Monday through Friday political talk show host right now. So tell my listeners more about what you wrote and why you wrote it.
Basically, almost overnight, the Trump administration took several drastic and unprecedented steps when it comes to U.S. foreign aid. It was shortly after inauguration where first they said there's not going to be any more projects funded by the USAID while the administration conducts a review of what's already been funded in recent years. Then that same Friday, they announced there was going to be a freeze on the current projects. All around the world, USAID-funded programs, which cover a gamut of activities from providing medical supplies and treatment to different kind of democracy building initiatives around the world, and they told them to stop all at once. They had to stop work, and there was limited exceptions, but pretty much every operation that U.S. taxpayers had already paid for had to, on a dime, stop what they were doing. And we were writing about, in that story, we were writing about the immediate impact of that on patients, on people around the world. These are some of the most desperate and vulnerable people around the world, so this obviously would have an enormous impact. The U.S., through USAID, is the largest giver of foreign aid in the world, so this obviously had, momentous implications, and that's what we were writing about.
How did you find about, I don't want you to, get anybody in trouble, but just speaking about being a reporter and your techniques, obviously it's better to tell a story if you can humanize it. Your facts and figures are great, but if you can tell a person's story, like this is happening to Maria, she is suffering this way, or she's doing without because of X, Y, or Z, that resonates with people a lot more than just plain old facts and figures. So as a reporter, in a situation like this, especially when you're talking about foreign aid, how did you find somebody in Sudan who was willing to talk?
This is the Sudan example is a credit to my reporting colleague, Anna, who is fantastic. But the way we were doing this, the way we were identifying this impact in such a short time frame was through people at USAID. So in addition to shutting down all of these programs worldwide, they were in tandem effectively gutting the agency. They were putting civil servants on administrative leave. They were locking people out of their systems. They were laying off and furloughing contractors here stateside. All of these people had a critical role to play when it came to processing the payments, getting money out the door for these programs. These were the kind of frontline liaisons with those contractors and those nonprofit organizations around the world. When those programs were stopped, the administration also told all of those workers who were still allowed to access their systems, you are not allowed to communicate with those organizations. So those organizations had no idea what was going on. It was mass chaos, and they had nobody to talk to. So when we were approaching people at USAID who were getting locked out of their systems, put on admin leave, they were telling us, I had a real job to do. This was my job. This is one of the programs I was helping keep online, and these are the people I'm not allowed to talk to right now. So we were learning about these examples inside out. We were learning about them from USAID, and then we were going out, reporting them out in the field.
That's amazing, and congratulations, Anna. That's some terrific work. I had this reporting today that the NIH at least acknowledges that the hold order on medical research was illegal, and that anybody in charge of distributing funds should be distributing those funds yet again. What's going on with USAID?
There's been, in the past 3 days, there's been a flurry of litigation. We're trying to stay on top of it. It's getting to be quite a bit. First, worker groups sued the administration, and they said that it was unconstitutional what Trump, Secretary of State Rubio, were doing. Basically, the charge was this agency, which was first created by executive order, but later established as an independent agency by Congress in '98. So it's a congressionally created agency like any others. Because of that status, it cannot be unilaterally gutted. This is what legal experts told us too. So on that legal grounds, there's been several lawsuits saying that the actions the administration has taken to gut the agency, halt its operations, and pretty much fold it entirely are unconstitutional and illegal. There's been various laws they brought up too, the Impoundment Act. We wrote about the Privacy Act. Several different possible violations that people have been alleging. In response to that, a judge early this week issued a temporary restraining order on the administration and said, while we sort this out, while we hold hearings about the claims from these workers, you have to reinstate everybody who you had put on administrative leave. They had put thousands of foreign service officers and civil servants on administrative leave en masse. And in addition to that, they were repatriating, forcing people abroad to come back stateside. So this is 2/3 of USAID is overseas, including in war zones. They put them on administrative leave. They cut off their access from government systems and said, you have to come home. You have 30 days to do it. The workers allege that this was unconstitutional as well. And the judge said they have to pause those efforts. They have to reinstate everyone's systems, let them get back online. And at the same time, the administration has been trying to issue waivers to individual nonprofits and organizations, telling them you're allowed to start work again. We're issuing you a waiver on that stop work order. However, that took a while. That took a couple of weeks, which is what we wrote about. There was confusion and chaos on who could apply for the waiver, how to even do it. And in the meantime, there was nobody really left at the agency, at USAID, to process those waiver applications. There has not been people there to get money out the door. So even if these organizations do get a waiver, they've had a lot of trouble getting the money that's already been congressionally approved for them. So there's been all sorts of these complications, and the courts have been, I guess the best way to put it is slowing it down. They've been slowing down the dismantling of the agency, which is what the administration has been doing.
I'm speaking with Brett Murphy, who's a reporter at ProPublica. He and Anna Maria Berry-Jester on January 31st published a great article about the Trump administration and whether or not the ban on humanitarian aid is or is not in place. We are going to take a real quick break. We're going to be back with more after this.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Every weekday afternoon from 2 to 5 p.m. on WCPT 820.
And I'm joined by Brett Murphy, who's a reporter at ProPublica. ProPublica is an organization that is reliable, is a source of unbiased information and reporting. It's a place where you can trust the information. If you're looking for someplace you feel a little more comfortable counting on, if you can afford one more subscription or to donate to one more place, this is a good place to choose. Brett and Anna Maria Berry-Jester posted an article end of January on the USAID freeze, unfreeze, but is it really a freeze? Did you get a waiver? Is that money coming through? There's been a lot of speculation, speculation. J.D. Vance said the quiet part out loud, Brett, that, when Donald Trump gets these court rulings that go against what he wants to do, he really should just ignore them. Do you see any of that kind of feeling in the confusion and chaos around USAID?
There's a lot of concern about it. There's a lot of concern about that sentiment throughout government right now. All the people we're talking to, including legal experts who have worked in multiple administrations, have said that would be, if the executive branch was to ignore the courts, that would only exacerbate a constitutional crisis, because that's supposed to be the primary check on executive powers of the courts. So they're supposed to measure the constitutionality of policy decisions of any administration. That's what the courts are there for. So this is top of mind to a lot of people. I will say that the temporary restraining order, some workers have alleged that it has not been fulfilled to the utmost by the administration. There are still people on administrative leave who should have had their access granted back already. The administration has said in response they're trying to get everyone back online best they can. They've issued a lot of arguments about why this shutdown of USAID is within their rights. Trump has said publicly that he wants to shut down the agency. Musk said he wants to put it through a wood chipper, or he spent the weekend putting it through a wood chipper. It's been the administration's position that it is within their authority to pause and halt operations while they go through every single program and decide what is worth funding and what is not. Congress has said that, or the Democrats in Congress anyway, have said that was our role. We have the power of the purse, and we already approved.
Well, that's been their
these programs.
argument. So many Democrats I've heard in the last week say, look, if you want to do an investigation or an audit of these agencies, if you want to see where every penny is going, and if you, at the end of that, decide that there are certain programs or certain whatevers that just aren't worth the money, that's how it's supposed to work. We're on board with that. That is the process for finding waste or finding maybe places where we could get more bang for the buck. But that's not what the Trump administration is doing. It's a power grab, isn't it, Brett?
Well, they have said, the administration says that there was no other, with USAID anyway, I can't speak to the other agencies, but here at AID, they said we couldn't audit and we couldn't review while the programs were online. This is not an argument a lot of people buy within the agency. They said, of course you could have. But they say we had to pause everything to make sure that we got full compliance from our own workers. They accuse civil servants of being insubordinate and deceitful and keeping programs online that they wanted to shut down during this review. So it's very clear that the administration, the leadership of the administration, is currently at stark odds, doing battle with their own civil servants. We reported this in a subsequent story. The civil service is, like the foreign service, is supposed to be pretty sacrosanct. It's supposed to It's supposed to transcend partisan politics. These are supposed to be protected individuals who work at the behest of any incoming administration, Democrat and Republican alike. The end run that this administration found to sidelining them was administrative leave en masse. They just effectively are charging taxpayers for these individuals to not work. They were locked out of their systems but still paid as a way to cripple the agency. That's what happened.
I remember when, before Pete Hegseth was finally voted on as head of the DOD, someone, not in one of the hearings, but with reporters, somebody said, well, I raised the question of this guy's never managed an agency anywhere near this size. He's done these two little veterans organizations that didn't amount to a hill of beans. And they said when they raised that question to one of their colleagues, they were told, that's what the staff is for. He doesn't really need to know how to manage the agency. That's what the staff is for. Only in some of these places, they don't want the staff there either.
That's what's happened here. There has been widespread fear and loathing among a lot of the senior leadership at USAID. The very first thing that happened there after inauguration and before they started shutting down various programs was they put senior leadership of all the bureaus, including many of the attorneys within the agency, on administrative leave. After that, they started, Musk's team gained access to the IT infrastructure, including a lot of personal records of information. They had gained access to Social Security numbers, addresses, a lot of personal information that legal experts told us may have violated the Privacy Act. But once they had that access to the IT infrastructure, they could more systematically shut down the agency, which had seemed to be their goal from the beginning. It's what they've been saying it publicly. Trump and Musk have been saying it publicly. It's worth noting Rubio, the Secretary of State, has said something much different to Congress. In a letter to Congress, he said, we're going to play by the rules here. We're going to be in consultation with you on the Hill. We're going to do this all by the book, and we are considering reorganizing some programs and maybe potentially folding them into the State Department. But there's been a much different reality on the ground. Things are moving way faster than Washington ever moves. Who's telling the truth here is what we're still trying to see.
So basically, we have Elon Musk's teenage ninja hackers we're trying to sift through private information, not being elected, not being given any kind of security clearance. I feel so good about that, Brett. I feel really, really comfortable about that. And if Marco Rubio doesn't change his tone My guess is he will be the very first cabinet member to be replaced. Remember how many cabinet members Trump went through the first time? And so many of them, it was because they were corrupt. They were spending their, their government budgets on like private jets and vacations and, big fancy dinners and yeah. So I think Donald Trump is kind of in a honeymoon period right now. He's, convinced his followers that he's doing a lot of stuff. I don't think much of it will stand, but then he can blame the deep state for thwarting him. And I don't know if you saw that CBS poll that came out recently where, they think he's energetic, he's doing stuff, yay. But if you look down in the poll, when people were asked about specific issues, like what do you think about the idea to take over Gaza? Wildly unpopular. Issue after issue, when you get to the specifics, well, no, we don't want him to do that. No, we don't want him to do that. No, that's a bad idea. Yeah, that's a bad idea too. But he's a great guy. Look, he's doing so much. It almost makes me feel like it's not a real effort to find efficiency in government. It's a show. It's a media show. Look at me. Look at how much I'm doing. And then when it's all struck down, because it seems like the vast majority of it is illegal, it'll be, that darn deep state again, thwarting me at every turn. It's kind of a win-win for Trump.
Things they have repeatedly accused USAID of doing are crimes like money laundering, fraud. These words keep coming up. People keep saying them, but the examples that the administrations have put forth to back that up have not amounted to those things. What they amount to is some programs that they don't like, that they don't think align with their agenda, which is very much within the prerogative of an administration to choose which programs they back and which they don't. But to shut down an entire agency while ostensibly rooting out corruption and fraud without presenting evidence of corruption and fraud has really, really bothered a lot of the people who devoted their lives to this agency, and not to mention the millions of people around the world who depend on USAID.
Yeah. Brett Murphy is a reporter at ProPublica, a news source that I strongly recommend. Brett, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, John.